I never thought my own family would make me feel like a stranger. For 40 years, I'd built a life filled with love, sacrifice, and dedication to my daughter Olivia. Yet, on my granddaughter Maddie's 12th birthday, I found myself seated at a rickety card table in the basement of Cedar Hill Estate, the very mansion I had inherited and allowed them to live in. As laughter and music filtered down from upstairs, I made a decision that would change everything. I left without a word and put the mansion up for sale the very next day. But that moment wasn't the beginning of my story. To understand how I ended up alone in that basement, you need to know what led me there. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Eleanor Mitchell. At 65, I had spent most of my life putting others first, especially my daughter Olivia. When my husband Thomas died unexpectedly 15 years ago, I was left with Cedar Hill Estate, a sprawling mansion that had been in his family for generations, and the responsibility of raising our teenage daughter alone. Olivia had always been headstrong, but after Thomas's death, she became even more difficult. Still, I devoted myself to her, making sure she had the best education, supporting her through college, and celebrating her achievements. When she married Nathan Parker, a finance manager with ambition that matched her own, I was hopeful that she had found happiness. 5 years after their marriage, Maddie was born. From the moment I held my granddaughter, I fell in love. As Olivia and Nathan built their careers at Riverside Corporate Center, I became Maddie's primary caregiver. I would arrive at their modest starter home early each morning, make breakfast, get Maddie ready for school, and keep their household running. When Maddie came home, I helped with homework, prepared dinner, and made sure everything was perfect before Olivia and Nathan returned late in the evening. 3 years ago, when the housing market in Lakeside Grove began to soar, Olivia approached me with an idea. "Mom, we're outgrowing the house, but everything in this area is so expensive," she explained. "What if we moved into Cedar Hill? It's just you rattling around in that big place. We could all live together, and you wouldn't be alone anymore." The proposal made sense. The mansion had 5 bedrooms, a separate guest wing, and enough space for everyone to have privacy. Plus, I would be with Maddie every day. So I agreed, and they moved in, bringing their modern furniture and ideas about how the house should look. Initially, things were harmonious. I had my own suite on the main floor, and life had a pleasant rhythm. I still helped with Maddie, cooked most meals, and maintained the house while they were at work. Gradually, though, things began to change. It started with small comments. "Mom, could you use the good china only when we have guests?" Or, "We'd prefer if you didn't rearrange the living room furniture." Then came bigger requests. "We're thinking of repainting your old bedroom. Olivia needs a home office." Before long, I found myself accommodating their every wish, retreating further into my suite as they claimed more of the house. I noticed that Olivia had been spending time with Victoria Hamilton, a woman I had known for years. Victoria was everything I wasn't. Wealthy in her own right, sophisticated and socially connected. She had known Thomas in college, and there had always been tension between us. Victoria had 2 grown children, Sophia and James, who were around Olivia's age. Last month, I overheard Olivia on the phone. "Yes, Victoria, my mother still doesn't suspect anything. I know, it's perfect. She'll sign anything I put in front of her. Of course, Maddie's birthday party will be at Oakwood Manor." "No, Mom doesn't need to know until the day of. James has already drawn up the paperwork. She'll never need to know about the foundation accounts." My heart sank. What paperwork? What foundation accounts? Why was my daughter's birthday party being held at Victoria's home instead of our own? I retreated to my room, mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. The week before Maddie's birthday, Olivia approached me with a stack of documents. "Just some routine estate planning, Mom. Nathan's financial advisor suggested it. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Nothing to worry about. Just sign here and here. For the first time in years, I didn't immediately comply. I think I'll have my own attorney look these over first, I said quietly. The flash of annoyance that crossed Olivia's face confirmed my suspicions that something wasn't right. Fine, she said curtly, but don't take too long. These need to be filed soon. I called Walter Jenkins, my elderly neighbor and a retired attorney, and asked if he would look over the documents. His voice grew grave as he read. Eleanor, this isn't routine estate planning. These papers would transfer ownership of Cedar Hill to a foundation controlled by Olivia and someone named James Hamilton. You'd retain life rights to live here, but essentially, the house would no longer be yours to sell or modify. There's also language about your investment accounts being managed by this same foundation. The betrayal cut deep. My own daughter was trying to take control of everything I owned under the guise of helping me. But why? And what did Victoria Hamilton have to do with it? The day of Maddie's birthday arrived. Olivia had been vague about the plans, saying, only that I should be ready by 2 o'clock. When the time came, Nathan appeared at my door. Change of plans, he said briskly. The party's at Oakwood Manor. Victoria is hosting. Victoria's house? But why not here? Nathan shrugged. Olivia thought it would be nice to have it somewhere special. We're already running late. When we arrived at Victoria's sprawling estate, the party was in full swing. Children played on the manicured lawn while adults mingled on the terrace. Victoria greeted Nathan warmly, but her smile cooled when she saw me. Eleanor, how nice of you to join us. You know, I've set up a special place for the grandparents and older relatives in the garden room downstairs. Much quieter there. I looked around, but I don't see any other grandparents. Victoria's smile tightened. They'll be along. Why don't you head down now and get comfortable? Nathan gave me a small push toward the door. Go on, Mom. We need to check on Maddie. The garden room turned out to be a basement storage area hastily decorated with a few potted plants. A small card table with a plastic tablecloth had been set up in the corner. There were no other grandparents, no other older relatives. Just me alone, separated from my granddaughter on her birthday. I sat there for 20 minutes, listening to the sounds of celebration above me. Then I heard voices on the stairs, Olivia and Victoria. Has she signed the papers yet? Victoria asked. Not yet, but she will. Mom never refuses me anything for long. Good. Once Cedar Hill is under foundation control, we can move forward with the development plans. The property alone is worth millions, especially with the rezoning approval going through next month. I know. And James says once we sell, Nathan. And I can use our portion to buy that place in Meridian Heights. Victoria laughed softly. And your mother will never know. She'll think she's still living in her precious house while we build around her. By the time she realizes what's happening, it will be too late. She's getting so forgetful anyway, Olivia added. Half the time she doesn't even remember what day it is. It's for her own good, really. I froze, unable to believe what I was hearing. Forgetful? I managed the entire household calendar. Just last week, I had reminded Olivia about Nathan's dental appointment that she had forgotten. We should get back, Victoria said. James wants to talk to you about the foundation, board structure. Their footsteps retreated, leaving me alone with the devastating truth. My daughter was conspiring to take everything from me, my home, my independence, and even my dignity. And she was using my granddaughter's birthday as cover for her schemes. In that moment, something inside me broke, but something else, something stronger began to form in its place. A resolve I hadn't felt in years. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked quietly up the stairs. No one noticed as I slipped through the kitchen and out the side door. I called a rideshare service and went home. Home to Cedar Hill, the house. that had been in Thomas's family for generations. The house where I had raised Olivia. The house that was still, legally, mine. Back in my suite, I opened my laptop and began to research. First, I checked my property records. Cedar Hill was still solely in my name. Next, I looked into the rezoning approval Victoria had mentioned. Sure enough, there was a pending application to rezone several properties in our neighborhood for commercial development, including Cedar Hill's address. Then I called Walter Jenkins again. "Walter, I need to move quickly. Can you help me?" The next morning, while Olivia and Nathan were still asleep after the late party, I contacted a real estate agent specializing in luxury properties. Cedar Hill Estate was officially on the market by noon. By 2 o'clock, I had called a locksmith to change the locks on my private suite and my home office, where I kept all important documents. And by 4, I had met with my bank to secure my accounts and investments. When Olivia and Nathan returned from work that evening, they found me sitting calmly in the living room, a for sale sign visible through the front window. "Mom, what have you done?" Olivia's face drained of color. I met her gaze steadily. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "I've decided it's time for a change. Cedar Hill is too much house for me now." But you can't just sell it. This is our home." Panic edged her voice. "No, Olivia. This is my home. You live here because I allowed it." I kept my voice even, though my heart was racing. "The house will be shown to prospective buyers starting tomorrow. I suggest you start looking for a new place to live." Nathan stepped forward, his expression thunderous. "You can't do this to us. We have rights." "You have no rights to this property," I interrupted. "You have no lease, no ownership interest, and no claim. You've contributed nothing to its upkeep or expenses." "Mom, please." Olivia's tone shifted to the wheedling one she used when she wanted something. "You're not thinking clearly. Remember those papers I showed you? They were meant to protect you, to make sure you're taken care of." "I remember the papers very well. And I also remember your conversation with Victoria in the basement yesterday." Her face went slack with shock. You heard that?" "Every word, including your plans to put me away somewhere while you profit from selling my home." "It wasn't like that," she stammered. Victoria was just helping you steal from me," I finished for her, "and you were just about to let her." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. Whether from genuine remorse or frustration at being caught, I couldn't tell. "Mom, please. Where will we go? What about Maddie?" The mention of my granddaughter nearly broke my resolve, but then I remembered how they had hidden her birthday party from me, how they had seated me alone in a basement while they celebrated above. "You should have thought about Maddie before you plotted to take everything from me," I said quietly. "The house will be sold. That decision is final." Nathan grabbed Olivia's arm. "Come on, we're not going to beg." He pulled her toward the stairs, but she resisted. "Mom, you can't do this. I'm your daughter, your only child." I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not the little girl I had raised, but a stranger, a woman who had been willing to betray her own mother for money. "Yes, Olivia, you are my daughter, and that's the only reason I'm giving you 30 days to find a new place to live instead of the 24 hours you legally deserve." As they stormed upstairs, I sat alone in the growing darkness, wondering how we had come to this. What had I done wrong? Where had my sweet daughter gone? And what would happen to Maddie, caught in the middle of this betrayal? But beneath the sadness was something else, a sense of liberation. For the first time in decades, I had stood up for myself. I had reclaimed my power. And though the road ahead was uncertain, I knew one thing for certain. I would never allow anyone to make me feel small again. The next day, as promised, potential buyers began touring Cedar Hill. I had chosen to list with an exclusive agency that specialized in historic properties, and interest was immediate. The agent had suggested an asking price well above what I had expected. Apparently, large estates in established neighborhoods like ours were rare and highly desirable. Olivia and Nathan made themselves scarce during the showings, taking Maddie with them. The few times I saw my daughter, she alternated between icy silence and tearful pleas. Nathan had given up trying to change my mind and instead spent his evenings hunched over his laptop, presumably searching for new housing. A week after listing the property, I received an offer. Full asking price, cash, with a 45-day closing period. The buyers were a couple from the West Coast looking for an East Coast residence. They loved Cedar Hill's history and architectural details, and they weren't interested in tearing it down for development. I accepted immediately. That evening, I called Maddie to my suite. She came reluctantly, her young face troubled. "Grandma, are you really making us move away?" I patted the space beside me on the sofa. "Come sit, sweetheart." When she did, I took her hand. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Big mistakes. Your mom and dad made some choices that weren't very nice. "Is this because of my birthday party?" She looked down. "I wanted you there, Grandma. Mom said you were tired and needed to rest downstairs." My heart ached. "It's about more than the party, Maddie. It's about respect and trust. When those are broken, sometimes things have to change. But where will we go? And will I still see you?" I squeezed her hand. "Of course you'll still see me. I'm your grandmother, and nothing will ever change that. As for where you'll go, that's for your parents to figure out. But I promise you'll be okay." She leaned against me, and for a moment, we sat in silence. Then she whispered, "I heard Mom and Victoria talking. They said something about putting you in a home because you're confused. But you don't seem confused to me." Out of the mouths of babes, I hugged her tightly. "I'm not confused, Maddie. And I'm not going to any home except my own." When she left, I sat thinking about what lay ahead. The sale would close in just over a month. I needed to decide where I would go, what I would do with the proceeds, and how I would rebuild my life at 65. That night, I dreamed of Thomas. He was smiling at me, proud and loving, as if to say, "It's about time, Eleanor. It's about time." I woke with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. It was time to start living for myself. The days following, my decision to sell Cedar Hill were tense, to say the least. Olivia alternated between icy silence and tearful manipulation, while Nathan barely acknowledged my presence. Only Maddie seemed genuinely concerned about my feelings, sneaking into my suite in the evenings to sit with me while I sorted through decades of belongings. "What's this, Grandma?" she asked one evening, holding up a tarnished silver locket. I smiled, taking it from her small hands. "This belonged to your great-grandmother. She gave it to me on my 16th birthday." I clicked it open to reveal a faded photograph of a young couple. "That's her and your great-grandfather on their wedding day." Maddie studied the photo. "Will you give it to Mom someday?" The innocent question caught me off guard. Would I? After everything that had happened, could I still pass down family heirlooms to a daughter who had plotted to betray me? "I don't. No, sweetheart," I answered honestly. "Some things have changed." She nodded with a wisdom beyond her 12 years. "Because of what Mom and Dad did." Before I could respond, Olivia appeared in the doorway, her expression hardening when she saw us together. "Maddie, it's time for homework. Dad's waiting to help you with math." Maddie squeezed my hand before leaving. "I'll come back tomorrow." "Grandma!" Olivia lingered after Maddie left, her eyes falling on the open boxes scattered around my suite. "So you're really going through with this?" "Yes, Olivia. The house sold yesterday." She paled. "Already? But how? It's only been on the market for 10 days. Apparently, Cedar Hill is quite desirable. The new owners are paying cash." Olivia sank onto the edge of my bed, suddenly looking lost. Mom, please. Can't we talk about this? I know you overheard something at the party, but you misunderstood. Victoria was just trying to help us create a family trust to protect your assets. I set down the photo album I'd been organizing and faced my daughter directly. Stop lying, Olivia. I heard everything. You and Victoria were planning to have me declared incompetent, put my assets into a foundation you would control, and develop my property for profit. That's not, she began, but I held up my hand. Not only that, but you hid Maddie's birthday party from me, seated me alone in a basement, and have been systematically pushing me out of my own home for months. My voice remained calm, though inside I felt anything but. What happened to you, Olivia? When did money and status become more important than decency? She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. You wouldn't understand. You've always had everything handed to you. This house, Dad's inheritance, a comfortable retirement. Nathan and I have worked for everything we have. I laughed, the sound sharp and disbelieving. Handed to me? I worked as a teacher for 30 years while raising you alone after your father died. I put you through college without a penny of student debt. I've been Maddie's unpaid nanny and housekeeper since she was born. I gestured around us. And you've been living in my home, rent-free, for 3 years. We offered to pay rent, she protested. You said no, because you're my daughter. Because I thought family helped family without keeping score. I shook my head. I never expected gratitude, Olivia, but I certainly never expected betrayal. She stood abruptly. You know what? Fine. Keep playing the victim. Nathan and I have already found a place in Meridian Heights. We'll be out before the closing date. Meridian Heights? I repeated, remembering the conversation I'd overheard. The exclusive gated community? How can you possibly afford that on your salaries? A flash of guilt crossed her face before being replaced by defiance. We've been saving, and Nathan got a bonus. Or perhaps Victoria and her son are still funding. You? I suggested quietly. Olivia's silence was answer enough. She turned to leave but paused at the door. What will you do? Where will you go? For the first time, I heard genuine concern in her voice, and for a moment, I glimpsed the daughter I had once known. But the memory of her plotting with Victoria was still too fresh. That's no longer your concern, I replied. I've taken care of myself for 65 years. I'll manage for a few more. After she left, I returned to my sorting with renewed determination. The locket lay open on the table, my mother's young face smiling up at me. What would she have done in my situation? She had always been stronger than I was, more willing to stand her ground. Perhaps it was time I followed her example. The next morning, I contacted Walter Jenkins again. I need to make some changes. To my will, I told him. Of course, Eleanor. What did you have in mind? I want to set up a trust for Maddie's education, but I want it structured so that Olivia and Nathan can't access the funds directly. I hesitated. And I want to donate the bulk of my estate to the Lakeside Grove Historical Preservation Society. Walter didn't ask questions, though I could hear the concern in his voice. I'll draw up the paperwork. Will you be staying in the area after the sale? No, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. I think it's time for a fresh start. That afternoon, I drove to Willow Creek Cottage, a charming property I'd spotted during my morning walks. It was smaller than Cedar Hill, just 2 bedrooms and a sunroom, but it had a lovely garden and was walking distance from the Lakeside Community Center. The realtor, a cheerful woman named Diane, seemed surprised when I made an offer on the spot. Are you sure, Mrs. Mitchell? Most people want to think about such decisions overnight. I smiled. I've done enough thinking. Sometimes you just know when something is right. As I drove back to Cedar Hill, I felt lighter than I had in, years. The cottage would be mine in 30 days, well before I needed to vacate the mansion. With the proceeds from Cedar Hill's sale, I would be financially secure for the rest of my life. For the first time in decades, I was making decisions based solely on what I wanted, not on what others expected of me. When I returned home, I found Nathan waiting in the foyer, his expression grim. "We need to talk, Eleanor." I set down my purse. "What about, Nathan?" "This vendetta you're carrying out against us. It's childish and cruel." I raised an eyebrow. "Vendetta? Is that what you call protecting myself from being taken advantage of?" "You're blowing everything out of proportion," he insisted. "So what? If we were planning to create a foundation, it would have benefited everyone, including you. And now, because you're too stubborn to see reason, we're all suffering." "All suffering?" I repeated. "From what I understand, you and Olivia are moving to Meridian Heights, hardly a step down from Cedar Hill. I'd hardly call that suffering." His jaw tightened. "That's not the point. The point is, you're tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding." "No, Nathan. You and Olivia did that when you decided to conspire with Victoria Hamilton to take control of my assets." I moved past him toward the stairs. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have packing to finish." He grabbed my arm, stopping me. "Listen to me. Olivia may be too emotional to deal with this practically, but I'm not. We had plans for Cedar Hill, important plans that would have secured Maddie's future. You're ruining everything with this impulsive decision." I pulled my arm free. "Take your hand off me, and don't speak to me about Maddie's future. I've already established a trust for her education, one that neither you nor Olivia can touch." "You what?" His face darkened with anger. "You had no right?" "I had every right," I interrupted. "It's my money, earned through decades of work and careful investment, something you and Olivia seem to have forgotten." For a moment, I thought he might lash out physically. Instead, he stepped back, a cold smile forming on his lips. "Fine, have it your way, Eleanor. But remember this: actions have consequences. You're burning bridges you may need to cross again someday." As he walked away, his words hung in the air like a threat. I stood there, shaken but resolute. The Nathan I had known, or thought I had known, for the past 13 years would never have spoken to me that way. The mask had truly slipped. That evening, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. "Eleanor Mitchell?" a woman's voice inquired. "Yes, speaking." "This is Grace Winters. We met at the community center last month during the pottery workshop." I remembered her, a silver-haired woman with kind eyes and a ready laugh. "Of course, Grace. How are you?" "I'm well, thank you. I hope you don't mind me calling. Diane, she's my cousin, mentioned you're looking for a fresh start and, well..." She paused. "I run a book club for women our age at the center. We're meeting tomorrow evening if you'd like to join us." The invitation was unexpected but welcome. "I'd like that very much," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. When was the last time I'd done something purely social, just for myself? "Wonderful. We're discussing Jane Austen's Persuasion. Have you read it?" I laughed. "Only about a dozen times. It's one of my favorites." "Perfect. Then you'll fit right in." She gave me the details, and we chatted for a few more minutes before hanging up. As I set down the phone, I realized I was smiling. A book club. Such a simple thing, but it represented something I had been missing for years. Connection with people who wanted nothing from me except my company and conversation. The next day, I met with the buyers of Cedar Hill, Robert and Elizabeth Chen, a gracious couple in their 50s. They walked through the house with obvious appreciation for its history and character. "We'll take good care of it," Elizabeth assured me, seeming to sense my attachment to the place. "Our children are grown, but they visit often with our grandchildren. This house deserves to be filled with family." I nodded, grateful for her understanding. It was a happy home for many years. As we completed the walkthrough, Olivia appeared in the hallway, stopping short when she saw the Chens. Her expression was a mix of curiosity and resentment. "Mrs. Chen, Mr. Chen, this is my daughter, Olivia Parker," I said, keeping my voice pleasant. "Olivia, these are the new owners of Cedar Hill." Elizabeth extended her hand warmly. "It's lovely to meet you. Your mother has told us what a beautiful home this has been for your family." Olivia shook her hand briefly. "Yes, it was. Excuse me." She turned and walked away without another word. Robert raised an eyebrow. "I apologize if our presence is causing tension." "Please don't apologize," I assured them. "My daughter is adjusting to the change. It has nothing to do with you." After they left, I found Olivia in the kitchen, aggressively chopping vegetables for dinner. "You could have been more polite," I remarked. She didn't look up. "Why? So they can feel better about taking our home?" "They're not taking anything. I'm selling a house that belongs to me." She set down the knife with a clatter. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family? To Maddie? She's going to have to change schools, leave her friends, all because you can't get over some petty grudge." "This isn't about a grudge, Olivia. It's about respecting me enough not to plot behind my back. It's about recognizing that I'm still capable of making my own decisions about my life and my property." I watched her resume chopping, her movements sharp and angry. "And Maddie will be fine. Children are resilient." "Like I was resilient," she retorted. "When Dad died and you were too wrapped up in your grief to notice I was falling apart?" The accusation caught me off guard. "What are you talking about? I was there for you every day after your father died." "Physically, maybe, but emotionally?" "You checked out, Mom. For months you went through the motions, but you weren't really there." She pushed the vegetables aside. "Do you know who was there? For me?" "Victoria. She called, she visited. She made sure I was okay while you were sleepwalking through life." I stared at her, stunned. "Victoria Hamilton? You barely knew her before your father died." "She was Dad's friend from college. She reached out after the funeral, said she wanted to help." Olivia's voice softened with the memory. "She took me shopping, let me talk about Dad without falling apart, treated me like a person instead of a fragile doll." I sank into a kitchen chair, trying to process this revelation. Had I really been so absent in my grief that Victoria Hamilton, of all people, had stepped in to comfort my daughter? "Olivia, I had no idea." "Of course you didn't. You never asked." She turned back to her chopping. "And now you're selling our home without a second thought about how it will affect us. Some things never change." I wanted to defend myself, to point out that her recollection of events after Thomas's death was colored by adolescent perception. But maybe there was some truth to what she was saying. Maybe I had failed her in ways I hadn't recognized. But that didn't excuse what she and Nathan had planned with Victoria. "I'm sorry if I wasn't everything you needed after your father died," I said quietly. "But that doesn't justify what you were trying to do to me now." She didn't respond, and I left the kitchen, my thoughts in turmoil. If Victoria had been manipulating Olivia since she was a teenager, it partially explained the hold she had over my daughter now. But it didn't explain everything. It didn't explain why Olivia had been willing to deceive me, to potentially have me declared incompetent, all for financial gain. That evening, I attended the book club at the community center. The group consisted of 6 women, ranging in age from early 60s to late 70s. Grace welcomed me warmly, introducing me to everyone. "Ladies, this is Eleanor Mitchell. She's joining us for the first time tonight." I was greeted with smiles and handshakes, and soon found myself engrossed in a lively discussion about Anne, Elliot, and second chances. For 2 hours, I didn't think about Cedar Hill or Olivia or the upheaval of the past few weeks. I was just Eleanor, a woman with opinions about literature and life, engaging with peers who valued what I had to say. As the meeting wound down, Grace approached me. "I'm so glad you could make it, Eleanor. Will you join us next month?" "I'd love to," I said sincerely. This was exactly what I needed. She smiled knowingly. "Diane mentioned you're going through some changes. New house, fresh start. If you need anything, help moving, recommendations for services, or just someone to have coffee with, please call. Many of us have been through similar transitions." I was touched by her kindness. "Thank you, Grace. I might take you up on that." On the drive home, I reflected on the evening. These women didn't know me as Olivia's mother, or Thomas's widow, or Maddie's grandmother. They knew me simply as Eleanor, a peer with her own interests and thoughts. It had been liberating. When I returned to Cedar Hill, the house was quiet. Olivia and Nathan had taken Maddie out for dinner, according to the note on the counter. I was relieved to have the space to myself, to process the day's revelations and emotions. I made a cup of tea and carried it to my suite, settling into the armchair by the window. The moon was full, casting silver light across the gardens Thomas had loved so much. I had planned to take some cuttings from his favorite rose bushes before leaving Cedar Hill. Perhaps I could plant them at the cottage, a small piece of our past to carry into my future. The sound of the front door opening broke my reverie. Footsteps in the hallway, then a soft knock at my door. "Grandma, are you awake?" Maddie's voice was hesitant. "Come in, sweetheart." She slipped inside, already in her pajamas, her hair damp from a recent shower. "Mom and Dad are fighting again," she confided, climbing onto the ottoman in front of my chair. "I'm sorry to hear that. Are you okay?" She nodded. "They're not being very quiet about it. I heard Mom say something about Victoria, and Dad got really mad." I kept my expression neutral, though my curiosity was piqued. "Sometimes adults disagree, Maddie. It doesn't mean they don't love each other." "I know." She fidgeted with the hem of her pajama top. "Grandma, are you really moving? Away from us?" The question broke my heart. "I'm not moving away from you, Maddie. I'm just moving to a different house. We'll still see each other." "Promise." Her eyes, so like Thomas's, searched mine for reassurance. "I promise." I squeezed her hand. "No matter what happens between your mom and me, you will always be my granddaughter, and I will always love you." She seemed satisfied with that, and soon returned to her room. After she left, I sat wondering what argument had erupted between Olivia and Nathan. Was it possible they were having second thoughts about their alliance with Victoria? The next morning, I had my answer. Nathan cornered me in the garden where I was taking those rose cuttings. "Eleanor, we need to talk about Victoria Hamilton." I straightened, secateurs in hand. "What about her?" "I think," he began, then stopped, running a hand through his hair. "I think we may have been misled about her intentions." I waited, saying nothing, giving him space to continue. "Last night, I met with James Hamilton to finalize some details about the foundation. He let slip that once Cedar Hill was rezoned for commercial use, the foundation would sell to developers, not just build around the existing structure as Victoria had told us." He looked genuinely troubled. When I confronted him, he laughed and said his mother always gets what she wants. He implied that once the paperwork was signed, our involvement would be limited. "And you're surprised by this?" I asked. "Victoria. Hamilton has always put her own interests first. Why would this situation be any different?" "Because she promised Olivia." He stopped, realizing he was admitting too much. "She promised Olivia what? Money? Status? Acceptance into her social circle?" I shook my head. "Nathan, Victoria has been manipulating my daughter since she was a teenager. She saw Olivia's vulnerability after her father died and used it to drive a wedge between us." Nathan looked away. "Olivia doesn't see it that way." Of course she doesn't. No one wants to admit they've been used. I studied him. Why are you telling me this now? What changed? He hesitated. I saw the trust documents for Maddie, what you've set up for her education. It's generous. More than generous. You didn't have to do that, especially after you and Olivia tried to take everything from me? I finished for him. He had the grace to look ashamed. Yes. I continued gathering my rose cuttings. I did it for Maddie, not for you or Olivia. She shouldn't suffer because of her parents' choices. Nathan nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about how things have turned out. Not about the sale, that was your right. But about the rest. About Victoria. About the foundation. About Maddie's birthday party. I wasn't ready to forgive, but I appreciated the gesture. Does Olivia share your change of heart? His expression tightened. No. She still believes Victoria has our best interests at heart. That's what we were arguing about last night. I wrapped the rose cuttings carefully in damp newspaper. Then I'm afraid there's nothing more to discuss. As Nathan walked away, I sensed that a turning point had been reached. The facade was cracking. The truth about Victoria was beginning to emerge. But would it be enough to open Olivia's eyes before she lost everything? Not just Cedar Hill, but her marriage, her integrity, and possibly her relationship with her daughter? I had made my decision. The house was sold, my new home secured, my future planned. There was no going back now, even if part of me wished there could be some reconciliation with my daughter. The betrayal had cut too deep, the trust broken too thoroughly. That evening, as I packed the last of my personal belongings from the master suite, I came across a photo album I hadn't looked at in years. Inside were pictures from Olivia's childhood, her first day of school, ballet recitals, family vacations. In every image, her smile was radiant, her trust in the world absolute. When had that changed? When had she become someone capable of betraying her own mother? A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. I opened the door to find Maddie standing there, clutching a folded piece of paper. I made this for you, Grandma. She handed me the paper, a homemade card decorated with glitter and childish drawings. Inside, she had written, I love you forever, no matter where you live. Tears sprang to my eyes as I hugged her tightly. Thank you, sweetheart. This means more to me than you know. After she left, I placed the card in my suitcase, on top of the clothes I had packed for my first night at Willow Creek Cottage. Whatever happened with Olivia and Nathan, I would make sure Maddie knew she was loved. I would not repeat the mistakes of the past. The breaking point had come and gone. Now it was time to rebuild, not what was lost, but something new. Something that honored the person I was now, not just the roles I had played for others. The morning I moved into Willow Creek Cottage dawned clear and bright, as if nature itself approved of my fresh start. My belongings had been delivered the day before, just the essentials and cherished mementos. I had sold or donated most of the furniture from Cedar Hill, keeping only a few antique pieces that had been in Thomas's family. Grace Winters had been true to her word, arriving early with coffee and freshly baked scones. Welcome to your new beginning, she said, handing me a small potted lavender plant for peace and tranquility. I placed it on the kitchen windowsill where the morning sun would reach it. Thank you, Grace, for everything. She waved away my gratitude. That's what friends are for. Now, let me help you unpack those kitchen boxes. Then we'll tackle the bedroom. We worked side by side all morning, transforming the empty cottage into a home. Unlike Cedar Hill, with its imposing rooms and formal spaces, Willow Creek was cozy and inviting. The sunroom overlooked a small but well-tended garden, and the kitchen, though half the size of Cedar Hill's, felt more welcoming. This suits you, Grace remarked as we broke for lunch. Cedar Hill was beautiful, of course, but this place, it has character. I nodded, looking around at the bright yellow walls and warm wooden floors. It feels like a fresh start, like I can be whoever I want to be here. And who might that be? She asked, curious. I considered the question. For so many years, my identity had been defined by others. Thomas's wife, Olivia's mother, Maddie's grandmother. Who was I when those roles were stripped away or redefined? I'm not entirely sure yet, I admitted, but I'm looking forward to finding out. Grace smiled approvingly. That's the spirit. It's never too late to discover new parts of yourself. After she left, I continued unpacking, finding places for my books, arranging Thomas's collection of vintage cameras on the built-in shelves in the living room. Each item I placed felt deliberate, a conscious choice rather than a matter of routine. By evening, the cottage was taking shape. I sat on the porch with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace. The anger and hurt were still there, simmering beneath the surface, but they no longer consumed me. My phone rang, interrupting my reverie. Olivia's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated before answering. Hello, Olivia. Mom. Her voice was strained. Are you settled in your new place? Yes, I moved in this morning. That's good. She cleared her throat. Look, I'm calling because Maddie keeps asking when she can visit you. I told her we need to wait until you're settled, but she's quite persistent. Despite everything, I smiled at the thought of my granddaughter's determination. She can visit any time. The cottage isn't large, but there's a lovely guest room she's welcome to use whenever she wants. Olivia sighed. This weekend, then? Nathan and I have some things to discuss, and it might be better if Maddie wasn't around. I wondered about the hesitation in her voice. Were the cracks in her marriage widening? Of course. I can pick her up Friday after school if that works for you. That would be fine. I'll text you the address of her new school. After we hung up, I sat contemplating the conversation. Olivia's tone had been civil, almost conciliatory. Was it possible she was reconsidering her alliance with Victoria? Or was this simply a matter of convenience, needing someone to watch Maddie while she and Nathan sorted through their issues? Friday came quickly. I arrived at Maddie's new school 15 minutes early, parking near the front entrance. Children began streaming out, their weekend enthusiasm evident in their quickened steps and bright chatter. Then I spotted Maddie, her backpack nearly as big as she was, scanning the pickup area anxiously. I waved, and her face lit up when she saw me. She ran over, throwing her arms around my waist. Grandma, I missed you so much. I missed you too, sweetheart, I said, hugging her tightly. Ready to see my new house? She nodded eagerly, and we drove to Willow Creek Cottage, Maddie chattering the entire way about her new school, her new friends, and the science project she was working on. Mom says we have a new house too, she said, as we turned onto the Chai, tree-lined street where my cottage stood. It's bigger than our old one, but I don't like it as much. It feels empty. I glanced at her. Empty how? She shrugged. I don't know, just not like home. And Mom and Dad are always whispering and stopping when I come in the room. It's weird. We pulled into the driveway, and Maddie gasped with delight at the sight of the cottage with its gingerbread trim and cheerful yellow door. It looks like a house from a fairy tale. Inside, she explored every corner, from the window seat in the living room to the antique clawfoot tub in the main bathroom. This is awesome, Grandma. Can I really stay here sometimes? Anytime you want, sweetheart, I assured her. Your room is all ready for you. I showed her the guest room, which I had decorated with her in mind. Soft blue walls, a bookshelf filled with her favorite titles, and a small desk where she could work on homework or art projects. It's perfect, she whispered, running her hand over the patchwork quilt I had made for her years ago. It feels more like home than our new house already. We spent the evening baking cookies and watching her favorite movie. As I tucked her in that night, She asked the question I had been dreading. "Grandma, why are you and Mom fighting?" I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. "Your mom and I have different ideas about some important things. Sometimes that happens in families." "Is it because of Victoria?" "I don't like her very much." I raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Why not?" Maddie fidgeted with the edge of her quilt. "She's always telling Mom what to do, and Mom lets her. And she pretends to be nice to me, but it doesn't feel real." Out of the mouths of babes. "Well, your mom and Victoria have been friends for a long time." "Since before I was born," Mom said. "But Victoria doesn't talk to Mom like a friend. She talks to her like—" Maddie frowned, searching for the right words. "Like Mom's a kid and Victoria's the grown-up, even though Mom's a grown-up too." I nodded, impressed by her perception. "That's very observant of you, Maddie." "Dad doesn't like her either," she confided. "He calls her that manipulative witch when Mom can't hear, except he doesn't say witch." I bit back a smile. "Well, grown-ups have complicated relationships sometimes." She yawned, her eyelids drooping. "I wish everyone would just be nice to each other, like you're nice to me." "I wish that too, sweetheart," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "Sleep well." The weekend passed too quickly. Maddie and I explored the neighborhood, discovering a small bookstore where she spent her allowance on a new novel, and a bakery that made the best cinnamon rolls either of us had ever tasted. We planted the rose cuttings I had taken from Cedar Hill, Maddie solemnly patting the soil around each one. "These were Grandpa's favorites, weren't they?" she asked. "Yes, they were. How did you know that?" "Mom told me. She said Grandpa used to spend hours in the garden at Cedar Hill, and that you kept his roses alive all these years because you loved him so much." She looked up at me with those wise eyes. "That's what love is, right? Taking care of the things that matter to someone, even when they're gone?" I hugged her tightly, words failing me for a moment. "Yes, Maddie, that's exactly what love is." Sunday afternoon came all too soon. Olivia arrived to pick up Maddie, her expression guarded as she took in the cottage. "It's nice," she admitted reluctantly. "Smaller than I expected." "It's perfect." "For me," I replied. "Maddie and I had a wonderful weekend." Olivia nodded, her attention caught by the rose cuttings freshly planted in pots on the porch. "Are those your father's heritage roses?" I confirmed. "Maddie helped me plant them yesterday." Something flickered across her face. Recognition, perhaps even nostalgia. "He loved those roses." "Yes, he did." I hesitated, then added, "You're welcome to take some cuttings for your new home if you'd like." She looked startled by the offer. Thank you. Maybe next time." As they were leaving, Maddie threw her arms around me. "Can I come back next weekend, Grandma? Please." Before I could respond, Olivia said, "We'll see, Maddie. Grandma might need some time to herself." "Actually," I interjected, "I'd love to have Maddie visit again. The guest room is always ready for her." Olivia held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, we'll figure something out." After they left, the cottage felt oddly empty. I had lived alone since Olivia moved, out for college, but somehow, after just 2 days with Maddie, the silence seemed more pronounced. I picked up my phone and called Grace. "Are you free for dinner? I find myself with an empty evening and could use some company." "I was just about to call you," she replied. "The book club ladies are meeting for an impromptu dinner at Rosalie's Bistro. Why don't you join us?" An hour later, I found myself seated at a large round table with Grace and 4 other women from the book club. The conversation flowed easily, covering everything from local politics to the merits of various mystery novelists. "Eleanor, you must join us for yoga on Tuesday mornings," urged Marion, a sprightly 70-year-old with a corona of white curls. "It's gentle enough for beginners but still gives you a good stretch." And the garden committee is looking for new members, added Judith, a former botanist. I noticed those lovely rose cuttings on your porch. Anyone who can salvage heritage, roses would be an asset to our team. By the end of the evening, my calendar for the upcoming week was filled with activities: yoga with Marion, a garden committee meeting with Judith, a pottery class with Grace, and a community theater performance with the entire group. We're not letting you become a hermit, Grace teased as we walked to our cars. Retirement is for living, not retreating. I laughed, genuinely delighted by their inclusion. I wouldn't dream of retreating now. I've only just begun to discover what's possible. The following weeks fell into a pleasant rhythm. Mornings often began with yoga or a walk around the neighborhood. Afternoons might find me at the community center for a class or committee meeting, or in my garden, nurturing Thomas's roses and planning new flower beds for the spring. Maddie visited every weekend, sometimes staying overnight, sometimes just for the day. She helped me decorate the cottage for fall, placing pumpkins on the porch steps and hanging a wreath of autumn leaves on the front door. "This is way more fun than our house," she confided one afternoon as we baked apple pie. "Mom doesn't let me help in the kitchen anymore. She says I make too much mess." I handed her the cinnamon to sprinkle over the sliced apples. "Messes can be cleaned up. Learning to cook is more important." She nodded seriously. "That's what I think too. Dad says Mom's trying too hard to impress Victoria and her fancy friends. They come over for dinner a lot, and I have to eat in the kitchen with the housekeeper." I frowned. "Your mom makes you eat separately when she has guests?" "Only when it's Victoria and her friends. Mom says children should be seen and not heard." Maddie rolled her eyes. "Which is stupid because how am I supposed to learn how to act at dinner parties if I never get to be at one?" "Very good point," I agreed. "When you have dinner here, we'll always eat together, and you can talk as much as you like." She beamed at me. "That's why I like coming here. You treat me like a real person." Her words stayed with me long after she went home. Was Olivia really so caught up in Victoria's world that she was sidelining her own daughter? It sounded like the behavior of someone desperate for approval, not the confident woman I had raised my daughter to be. The next time Olivia came to pick up Maddie, I invited her in for coffee. To my surprise, she accepted. "The place looks more finished," she commented, glancing around the living room where I had hung family photos and artwork collected over the years. "It feels like home now," I agreed, pouring coffee into the delicate cups that had been my mother's. "How are you settling into your new house?" She shrugged. "I don't know, just not like home. And Mom and Dad are always whispering and stopping when I come in the room. It's weird." We pulled into the driveway, and Maddie gasped with delight at the sight of the cottage with its gingerbread, trim, and cheerful yellow door. "It looks like a house from a fairy tale." Inside, she explored every corner, from the window seat in the living room to the antique clawfoot tub in the main bathroom. "This is awesome, Grandma. Can I really stay here sometimes?" "Anytime you want, sweetheart," I assured her. "Your room is all ready for you." I showed her the guest room, which I had decorated with her in mind. Soft blue walls, a bookshelf filled with her favorite titles, and a small desk where she could work on homework or art projects. "It's perfect," she whispered, running her hand over the patchwork quilt I had made for her years ago. "It feels more like home than our new house already." We spent the evening baking cookies and watching her favorite movie. As I tucked her in that night, she asked the question I had been dreading. "Grandma, why are you and Mom fighting?" I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. "Your mom and I have different ideas about some important things. Sometimes, that happens in families." "Is it because of Victoria? I don't like her very much." I raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Why not?" Maddie fidgeted with the edge of her quilt. "She's always telling Mom what to do, and Mom lets her. And she pretends to be nice to me, but it doesn't feel real." Out of the mouths of babes. "Well, you're Mom and Victoria have been friends for a long time. Since before I was born, Mom said. But Victoria doesn't talk to Mom like a friend. She talks to her like... Maddie frowned, searching for the right words. Like Mom's a kid and Victoria's the grown-up, even though Mom's a grown-up too. I nodded, impressed by her perception. That's very observant of you, Maddie. Dad doesn't like her either, she confided. He calls her that manipulative witch when Mom can't hear. Except he doesn't say which. I bit back a smile. Well, grown-ups have complicated relationships sometimes. She yawned, her eyelids drooping. I wish everyone would just be nice to each other, like you're nice to me. I wish that too, sweetheart, I whispered, kissing her forehead. Sleep well. The weekend passed too quickly. Maddie and I explored the neighborhood, discovering a small bookstore where she spent her allowance on a new novel, and a bakery that made the best cinnamon rolls either of us had ever tasted. We planted the rose cuttings I had taken from Cedar Hill, Maddie solemnly patting the soil around each one. These were Grandpa's favorites, weren't they? She asked. Yes, they were. How did you know that? Mom told me. She said Grandpa used to spend hours in the garden at Cedar Hill, and that you kept his roses alive all these years because you loved him so much. She looked up at me with those wise eyes. That's what love is, right? Taking care of the things that matter to someone, even when they're gone? I hugged her tightly, words failing me for a moment. Yes, Maddie, that's exactly what love is. Sunday afternoon came all too soon. Olivia arrived to pick up Maddie, her expression guarded as she took in the cottage. It's nice, she admitted reluctantly, smaller than I expected. It's perfect. For me, I replied. Maddie and I had a wonderful weekend. Olivia nodded, her attention caught by the rose cuttings freshly planted in pots on the porch. Are those your father's heritage roses? I confirmed. Maddie helped me plant them yesterday. Something flickered across her face. Recognition, perhaps even nostalgia. He loved those roses. Yes, he did. I hesitated, then added, You're welcome to take some cuttings for your new home if you'd like. She looked startled by the offer. Thank you. Maybe next time. As they were leaving, Maddie threw her arms around me. Can I come back next weekend, Grandma? Please? Before I could respond, Olivia said, We'll see, Maddie. Grandma might need some time to herself. Actually, I interjected, I'd love to have Maddie visit again. The guest room is always ready for her. Olivia held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. All right, we'll figure something out. After they left, the cottage felt oddly empty. I had lived alone since Olivia moved out, for college. But somehow, after just 2 days with Maddie, the silence seemed more pronounced. I picked up my phone and called Grace. Are you free for dinner? I find myself with an empty evening and could use some company. I was just about to call you, she replied. The book club ladies are meeting for an impromptu dinner at Rosalie's Bistro. Why don't you join us? An hour later, I found myself seated at a large round table with Grace and 4 other women from the book club. The conversation flowed easily, covering everything from local politics to the merits of various mystery novelists. Eleanor, you must join us for yoga on Tuesday mornings, urged Marion, a sprightly 70-year-old with a corona of white curls. It's gentle enough for beginners, but still gives you a good stretch. And the garden committee is looking for new members, added Judith, a former botanist. I noticed those lovely rose cuttings on your porch. Anyone who can salvage heritage, roses would be an asset to our team. By the end of the evening, my calendar for the upcoming week was filled with activities. Yoga with Marion, a garden committee meeting with Judith, a pottery class with Grace, and a community theater performance. With the entire group, we're not letting you become a hermit, Grace teased as we walked to our cars. Retirement is for living, not retreating. I laughed, genuinely delighted by their inclusion. I wouldn't dream of retreating now. I've only just begun to discover what's possible. The following weeks fell into a pleasant rhythm. Mornings often began with yoga or a walk around the neighborhood. Afternoons might find me at the community center for a class or committee meeting, or in my garden, nurturing Thomas's roses and planting new flower beds for the spring. Maddie visited every weekend, sometimes staying overnight, sometimes just for the day. She helped me decorate the cottage for fall, placing pumpkins on the porch steps and hanging a wreath of autumn leaves on the front door. "This is way more fun than our house," she confided one afternoon as we baked apple pie. "Mom doesn't let me help in the kitchen anymore. She says I make too much mess." I handed her the cinnamon to sprinkle over the sliced apples. "Messes can be cleaned up. Learning to cook is more important." She nodded seriously. "That's what I think too. Dad says Mom's trying too hard to impress Victoria and her fancy friends. They come over for dinner a lot, and I have to eat in the kitchen with the housekeeper." I frowned. "Your mom makes you eat separately when she has guests?" "Only when it's Victoria and her friends. Mom says children should be seen and not heard." Maddie rolled her eyes. "Which is stupid because how am I supposed to learn how to act at dinner parties if I never get to be at one?" "Very good point," I agreed. "When you have dinner here, we'll always eat together. And you can talk as much as you like." She beamed at me. "That's why I like coming here. You treat me like a real person." Her words stayed with me long after she went home. Was Olivia really so caught up in Victoria's world that she was sidelining her own daughter? It sounded like the behavior of someone desperate for approval, not the confident woman I had raised my daughter to be. The next time Olivia came to pick up Maddie, I invited her in for coffee. To my surprise, she accepted. "The place looks more finished," she commented, glancing around the living room where I had hung family photos and artwork collected over the years. "It feels like home." "Now," I agreed, pouring coffee into the delicate cups that had been my mother's. "How are you settling into your new house?" She shrugged. "It's fine. Bigger than we need, really, but the neighborhood is prestigious." I noted her choice of words. Not beautiful or comfortable, but prestigious. "And how are things with Nathan?" Her hands tightened around her coffee cup. "Fine. Busy with work, as usual." I decided to take a risk. "And Victoria? Is she still advising you?" Olivia's gaze snapped to mine, defensive. "Victoria has been nothing but supportive, Mom. She's introducing us to the right people, helping us establish ourselves in Meridian Heights." "At what cost?" I asked quietly. "What do you mean?" "Maddie tells me she's made to eat in the kitchen. When Victoria visits, that you tell her children should be seen and not heard." Olivia flushed. "Maddie exaggerates. And anyway, Victoria's friends aren't used to children at the dinner table. It's just easier this way." "Easier for whom?" "Certainly not for your daughter." She set down her cup with a clatter. "I didn't come here for a lecture on my parenting, Mom. No, you came to pick up the daughter you've been happy to leave with. Me every weekend while you play social climber with Victoria Hamilton." The words came out sharper than I intended, fueled by concern for Maddie. Olivia stood abruptly. "This was a mistake. I knew you wouldn't understand. Victoria is helping us build connections, secure our future, something you and Dad never managed to do." I rose to face her. "Your father and I gave you a stable home, a good education, and values that apparently didn't stick. We taught you to care about people, not status." "And look where that got you," she retorted. "A retired teacher living in a cottage while Victoria owns half the properties in Lakeside Grove." "I have everything I need, Olivia." "Can you say the same?" She didn't answer, instead calling for Maddie, who appeared in the doorway, reluctant to leave. "Come on, Maddie, we're going home." "Can't I stay one more night? Please, Mom? Grandma was going to teach me how to make grandpa's special pancakes tomorrow." "Not this time," Olivia said firmly. "You have school tomorrow, and I don't want you overtired." I knelt to hug Maddie goodbye. "We'll make pancakes next weekend, I promise." After they left, I sat on the porch, troubled by the conversation. Olivia seemed determined to pursue a life of status and social climbing, even at the expense of her daughter's happiness. What had happened to the compassionate, grounded young woman I thought I had raised? The following Tuesday, as I was leaving my yoga class with Marion, I spotted a familiar figure in the community center lobby, Nathan Parker, engaged in intense conversation with James Hamilton. Neither man looked happy. I ducked behind a large potted plant, not wanting to be seen. From my hiding spot, I could hear snippets of their exchange. "Not what we agreed to," Nathan was saying, his voice tight with anger. "Your mother promised." "Olivia, my mother promises lots of things," James interrupted with a dismissive laugh. "Doesn't make them true. Look, Parker, you're out of your depth here. Take the offer and be grateful. Once the development deal goes through, there'll be plenty of money to go around." "And if I refuse?" James's voice dropped, but I could still make out his words. "Then you get nothing. And I mean nothing. Your wife seems pretty attached to her new lifestyle. How do you think she'll react when it all disappears?" Nathan stepped closer, his posture threatening. "Is that a threat?" "Just a reality check. Be smart, Parker. Nobody wins by crossing Victoria Hamilton." With that, James clapped Nathan on the shoulder and walked out, leaving Nathan standing, alone, his face a mask of frustrated rage. I remained hidden until Nathan left, my mind racing. What deal had Victoria promised? And why was Nathan meeting with James behind Olivia's back? That evening, I received an unexpected visitor. Nathan stood on my porch, looking uncomfortable. "Eleanor, can we talk?" I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. "Would you like some tea? Got anything stronger?" I poured us each a small whiskey, the special reserve Thomas had collected. We sat in the living room, an awkward silence stretching between us until Nathan finally spoke. "I saw you today. At the community center." I didn't deny it. "Yes, I was leaving my yoga class." He nodded. "So you heard. Enough to know you and James Hamilton aren't seeing eye to eye." Nathan took a long swallow of his whiskey. "That's putting it mildly. The bastard is trying to cut me out of the deal Victoria promised. Says now that Cedar Hill is off the table, my contribution isn't valuable enough to warrant a full partnership." "What deal, Nathan? What were you contributing besides my property?" He had the grace to look ashamed. "My firm's banking connections, clean investment channels for Victoria's development projects." He sighed heavily. "I didn't start out to betray you, Eleanor. It began innocently enough, Victoria offering to help us move to a better neighborhood, introduce us to the right people. Then came the suggestion about Cedar Hill, how much more valuable it would be rezoned for commercial use. And Olivia went along with this. Victoria has had Olivia wrapped around her finger since Thomas died. She's always wanted what Victoria has: the social status, the apparent wealth, the influence." He finished his drink. "What she doesn't see is that Victoria's empire is built on manipulation and exploitation. She uses people until they're no longer useful, then discards them." "Like she's doing to you now," I observed. He nodded grimly. "Exactly. And Olivia refuses to see it. She thinks I'm just jealous of her relationship with Victoria, that I'm sabotaging her chance to finally be accepted by Lakeside Grove's elite." I refilled his glass. "And Maddie? Where does she fit into all this?" Nathan's expression softened at the mention of his daughter. "She doesn't. That's the problem. Olivia's so focused on impressing Victoria that she's neglecting Maddie. Our daughter spends more time with the housekeeper than with either of us. Which is why you've been so willing to have her visit me on weekends." "Yes," he admitted. "Maddie's happier here with you than in our prestigious new home." She laughs. "Here. At our house, she's just quiet all the time, trying not to do anything that might upset her mother." My heart ached for my granddaughter. caught in the middle of this mess. "What are you going to do, Nathan?" He stared into his glass. "I don't know. My career is at risk if I cross Victoria. She has influence at my firm. Our savings are nearly depleted from the down payment on the Meridian Heights house. And Olivia," he trailed off. "You think she'd choose Victoria over you?" I finished for him. His silence was answer enough. As Nathan left that evening, he paused at the door. "For what it's worth, Eleanor, I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved better from us." I nodded, not quite ready to forgive but appreciating the gesture. "Just take care of Maddie. Whatever else happens, remember that she needs her father." After he left, I sat up late, contemplating everything I had learned. My anger towards Olivia had softened somewhat, replaced by concern. She was being manipulated by a master, just as she had been since adolescence. But she was also a grown woman making her own choices, and those choices were hurting her daughter. The next morning, I called Walter Jenkins. "Walter, I need your help again. It's about Maddie." "Of course, Eleanor. What can I do?" "I want to establish regular visitation with my granddaughter. Something legally binding that can't be taken away on a whim." Walter was silent for a moment. "That's a serious step, Eleanor. It implies you don't trust your daughter to allow you access to Maddie." "I don't," I said simply. "Not while she's under Victoria Hamilton's influence. And from what I've gathered, that influence is only growing stronger." "I'll look into it," he promised. "But I should warn you, grandparents' rights are complicated. It might be better to try talking to Olivia first." "I've tried," I sighed. "She's not listening." After hanging up, I went to tend my garden, finding solace in the simple act of nurturing living things. Thomas's roses were thriving in their new home, putting out fresh growth despite the approaching winter. Like me, they were adapting, transforming themselves to survive in changed circumstances. As I worked, I reflected on the past few months. The betrayal that had seemed so straightforward at first had revealed itself to be far more complex, rooted in old wounds and manipulations that stretched back years. Olivia wasn't simply a daughter who had turned against her mother. She was a woman caught in a web spun by someone who had recognized and exploited her vulnerabilities. But recognition wasn't the same as forgiveness. Understanding Olivia's motives didn't erase the hurt of her actions. And no amount of context could justify endangering Maddie's emotional well-being for the sake of social status. I had changed in these months as well. The passive, accommodating mother who had allowed herself to be gradually pushed aside was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew her own worth, who had built a new life based on her own choices, and who was prepared to fight for what mattered, especially her granddaughter's happiness. The transformation wasn't complete, perhaps it never would be, but as I stood in my garden, surrounded by new growth, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them on my own terms, no longer defined solely by my relationship to others, but by the person I was choosing to become. Winter settled over Lakeside Grove, transforming the landscape into a world of pristine white. My cottage looked like something from a Christmas card, with frost glittering on the windows and smoke curling from the chimney. Inside, life had taken on a rhythm that suited me. My days were filled with activities at the community center, lunches with Grace and my growing circle of friends, and quiet evenings with books by the fire. Maddie still visited every weekend, though increasingly it was Nathan who dropped her off and picked her up. Olivia had become scarce, making excuses about social obligations or work commitments. Through Maddie, I learned that Victoria was now a constant presence in their lives, hosting dinner parties at their Meridian Heights home and whisking Olivia away for shopping trips or spa days. "Mom's never home anymore," Maddie confided one snowy Saturday as we baked Christmas cookies. "When she is, she's on the phone with Victoria or texting her about some party." I handed her a star-shaped cookie cutter. "And how does that make you feel?" Maddie concentrated on pressing the cutter into the dough before answering. Sad, I guess, and kind of mad. Dad's sad, too. I hear him talking to himself sometimes when he thinks I'm asleep. I kept my expression neutral, though inside, my concern deepened. What kind of things does he say? Grown-up stuff, about money and decisions and how Mom doesn't listen anymore. She looked up at me, her eyes troubled. Grandma, are Mom and Dad going to get divorced? The question caught me off guard. Why do you ask that, sweetheart? She shrugged, placing her cutout stars on the baking sheet. Lizzie at school says when parents fight all the time and one of them is never home, it means they're getting divorced. I chose my words carefully. I don't know what's happening between your parents, Maddie, but I do know they both love you, very much no matter what. She nodded, but I could see she wasn't entirely reassured. If they do get divorced, could I live with you sometimes? My heart swelled with love for this child who trusted me so completely. Of course you could. This is your home too, whenever you want it to be. That evening, after Maddie had gone to bed, I sat by the fire contemplating our conversation. The situation with Olivia and Nathan seemed to be deteriorating rapidly. From what Nathan had told me and what I could glean from Maddie's innocent observations, Victoria's influence had created a wedge between them that was only growing wider. I was pondering whether I should try again to reach out to Olivia when my phone rang. To my surprise, it was Walter Jenkins. Eleanor, I've been doing some research on that matter we discussed, about Maddie. Yes? What have you found? It's complicated, as I expected. Without evidence of neglect or harm, securing legally binding visitation would be challenging. He paused. However, I've discovered something else you might find interesting. It concerns Victoria Hamilton. My attention sharpened. Go on. I have a colleague in commercial real estate who's been watching Victoria's development activities. Apparently, several of her recent projects have run into financial difficulties. There are rumors of defaulted loans, investors pulling out. That sort of thing? That doesn't match her public image, I remarked. Victoria has always presented herself as extremely successful. Image and reality often differ, Walter replied. My colleague believes she's overextended herself with the Lakeside Commons project, the one she was hoping to include Cedar Hill in. Without that property as a centerpiece, the project may be in jeopardy. I thought about the implications. If Victoria was in financial trouble, what did that mean for Olivia and Nathan, who had tied their futures to her? Thank you for letting me know, Walter. Please keep me informed if you learn anything else. After hanging up, I sat staring into the fire, wondering if I should warn Nathan about what I'd learned. Before I could decide, my phone rang again. This time, it was Grace. Eleanor, are you sitting down? I just heard the most interesting piece of news at the Historical Society meeting. What is it? James Hamilton was there, trying to smooth-talk the board into supporting some variance for the Lakeside Commons project. He was quite desperate, actually. When they turned him down, he lost his temper, started ranting about how short-sighted they were. I could imagine the scene. James had always been as arrogant as his mother, but with less finesse. That doesn't sound like a winning strategy. It wasn't. But here's the interesting part. On his way out, he was arguing with someone on the phone, loudly enough that several people overheard. He was saying something about investors backing out, and how Mother's plan better work or we're finished. My pulse quickened. This matches what Walter just told me. Victoria might be in financial trouble. Grace lowered her voice, though we were on the phone. That's the rumor going around. Apparently, she's been leveraging one property to finance the next, and the house of cards is starting to wobble. After we hung up, I paced the cottage, debating what to do with this information. Part of me felt a certain satisfaction knowing that Victoria's carefully constructed empire might be crumbling, but another part worried about the fallout for Olivia, and, by extension, Maddie. Sunday afternoon, when Nathan came to pick up Maddie, I invited him in for coffee while she gathered her things. "Nathan, I've heard some concerning rumors about Victoria Hamilton's financial situation." His expression shifted from surprise to wariness. "What kind of rumors?" I told him what Walter and Grace had shared. As I spoke, his face grew increasingly troubled. "This confirms some things I've been noticing," he admitted. "Project timelines being extended, contractors complaining about late payments, and James has been pressuring me to contribute more capital to secure my partnership position." "Do you have it? The capital?" He shook his head grimly. "Not without taking out a second mortgage on the house, which I refuse to do, despite Olivia's insistence." "Olivia wants you to mortgage your home to give Victoria money?" I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. "She doesn't see it that way. Victoria has convinced her it's an investment opportunity, a chance to be part of something big." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I've tried to make her see reason, show her the financial reports that don't add up, but she accuses me of being jealous, of trying to undermine her friendship with Victoria." The situation was worse than I'd feared. "Nathan, if Victoria is truly in financial trouble, and if she's desperate enough to seek funding from you, then she's scrambling," he finished. "And desperate people do desperate things." Maddie bounded down the stairs, overnight bag in hand, oblivious to the tension between us. "I'm ready, Dad. Grandma, thank you for the cookies to take home." I hugged her tightly. "You're welcome, sweetheart. See you next weekend." After they left, I sat thinking about the situation. If Victoria was using Olivia to pressure Nathan for money, that put my daughter in an even more vulnerable position than I'd realized. But how could I make her see that? Olivia had made it clear she didn't want my advice or interference. The answer came unexpectedly the following Wednesday. I was leaving a pottery class at the community center when I spotted Olivia sitting alone in the cafe area, staring into a cup of coffee. She looked tired, the confident poise she usually maintained notably absent. I hesitated, then approached her table. "Olivia? Is everything all right?" She looked up, startled. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I take pottery classes on Wednesdays," I explained, gesturing to the glazed bowl I was carrying. "May I join you?" She nodded, seeming too weary to object. I sat down, setting my bowl on the table between us. "That's beautiful," she remarked, running a finger along the rim of the bowl. "I didn't know you were interested in pottery." "There's a lot we don't know about each other anymore," I said gently. "What brings you to the community center?" She sighed, pushing her coffee away. "I was meeting Victoria. She was supposed to introduce me to the director of the Lakeside Grove Arts Foundation. There's an opening on the board that she thought I'd be perfect for." "But Victoria didn't show?" "No. She called at the last minute, said something urgent. Had come up with the Lakeside Commons project." She frowned. "It's the third time she's canceled on me this month." I chose my next words carefully. "That must be frustrating, especially when you've rearranged your schedule for her." Olivia's eyes flashed with momentary defiance, then dimmed. "She's busy. Important people are busy." "Important people also respect other people's time," I pointed out, "and keep their commitments." She didn't argue, which told me more about her state of mind than any words could have. "How's Maddie enjoying her weekends with you?" The change of subject didn't surprise me. "She loves them. The cottage feels like a second home to her." "She talks about it all the time," Olivia admitted. "About the cookies you bake together, the books you read, the crafts you do. You're welcome to join us anytime." She looked away. "I'm usually busy on weekends." "With Victoria?" I asked, unable to keep a hint of challenge from my voice. "Yes, with Victoria," she snapped, some of her familiar defensiveness returning. "She's helping me build connections, establish myself in Meridian Heights society." And is that what you want? To be established in society? Of course it is. It's what I've always wanted. I raised an eyebrow. Is it? I remember a young woman who wanted to change the world through education, who talked about opening a learning center for underprivileged children. That was a naive dream, she dismissed. Victoria helped me see that there are more practical ways to make a difference. Like sitting on the board of the Arts Foundation? Exactly. Influence, Mom. Real influence comes from positions of power. I studied my daughter, seeing both the woman she had become and the girl she had once been. Olivia, does it ever occur to you that Victoria might be using you for her own purposes? Her face hardened. Here we go again. You've never liked her, never given her a chance. I've known Victoria Hamilton for 30 years, I reminded her. Long before you did. She's always put her own interests first, no matter who gets hurt, in the process. You're just jealous because she has everything you don't. Wealth, status, influence. If that's what matters to you, then yes, she has all those things. But at what cost, Olivia? Look at your marriage. Look at your relationship with Maddie. She flinched. Leave Maddie out of this. I can't. She's being affected by your choices whether you acknowledge it or not. Olivia gathered her purse, preparing to leave. I didn't come here for a lecture, Mom. No, you came here for Victoria, who didn't bother to show up or respect your time, I pointed out. Just think about that. She paused, conflict evident on her face. For a moment, I thought she might actually listen. Then her expression closed off again. I need to go. Goodbye, Mom. I watched her walk away, frustrated by her continued blindness to Victoria's manipulation. But a seed had been planted. I had seen it in that moment of uncertainty. Whether it would grow remained to be seen. The Christmas season brought more frequent visits from Maddie, who helped me decorate the cottage and bake cookies for my friends at the community center. Nathan seemed increasingly burdened each time he dropped her off, the strain of his deteriorating marriage evident in the shadows under his eyes and the tightness around his mouth. Victoria's pushing harder for that second mortgage, he confided, during one visit. She's promised Olivia a position with her foundation if we invest enough. And Olivia still doesn't see the danger? He shook his head wearily. She sees what Victoria wants her to see. 2 days before Christmas, I hosted a small gathering at my cottage. Grace and the book club ladies, Walter Jenkins, and a few neighbors I had befriended. Maddie was spending the evening with me while Olivia and Nathan attended a charity gala hosted by Victoria. We were in the middle of singing carols when my phone rang. It was Nathan, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Eleanor, I need a favor. Can Maddie stay with you tonight? Something's come up. Of course, I agreed immediately. Nathan, what's happened? Victoria showed her true colors tonight, he said cryptically. I can't talk now, but I'll explain everything tomorrow. After hanging up, I rejoined my guests, my mind racing with possibilities. What had Victoria done to finally open Nathan's eyes? And more importantly, had Olivia seen it too? I got my answer the next morning. Nathan arrived early, looking haggard but somehow lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Coffee? I offered. You look like you could use it. Something stronger wouldn't go amiss, he joked weakly, but coffee will do. Once I had poured us each a cup, he began his story. The gala last night was a fundraiser for the Lakeside Commons project. Victoria was working the room, charming potential investors, with Olivia trailing behind her like a devoted assistant. I was at the bar when I overheard James talking to one of the contractors. He didn't realize I was there. Nathan took a sip of coffee, gathering his thoughts. He was saying that once they secured the funding from those suckers at the gala, they could move forward with the revised plans. Plans that didn't include any of the community benefits Victoria had been promising. The park, the affordable housing component, none of it. That must have been eye-opening, I commented. It was. But what came next was worse. The contractor asked about the Parker investment, and James laughed. Actually laughed. He said, and I quote, "Those idiots are mortgaging their future for a fantasy. Mother has them wrapped around her finger, especially the wife. Once we have their money, they'll be just another footnote in the Hamilton success story." I winced at the callousness. "What did you do?" I confronted him right there, at the bar, caused quite a scene. A grim smile crossed his face. Victoria swooped in, tried to smooth things over, claimed James was exaggerating, that I had misunderstood. But by then, I'd had enough. I demanded to see the actual financial reports for Lakeside Commons, not the glossy projections she'd been showing us. And did she produce them? No. She got angry, said I was being ungrateful after all she'd done for us. Then she made her fatal mistake. She turned to Olivia and ordered her to control your husband. His expression darkened at the memory. Like Olivia was her employee, not her friend. I could imagine the scene all too clearly. How did Olivia react? That's the surprising part. She stood up to Victoria, demanded to see the financial reports too, said if we were expected to invest our life savings, we deserved transparency. Pride flickered across his face. It was the first time in months I'd seen her challenge Victoria on anything. And then, Victoria went cold. The mask completely dropped. She told Olivia that after everything she'd done for our family, this display of distrust was disappointing. Then she threatened that if we backed out now, she'd make sure we regretted it. Said she could end my career with one phone call. My blood ran cold at the naked threat. What happened next? Olivia shocked everyone, including me. She looked Victoria straight in the eye and said, "No one threatens my family. We're done. Here." Then she took my hand and we walked out. Relief and pride washed over me in equal measure. My daughter had finally seen through Victoria's manipulation. Where is Olivia now? Nathan's expression sobered. That's the complicated part. We talked for hours last night after we got home. About Victoria, about our marriage, about the mess we've made of things. He swallowed hard. Olivia admitted she's been so caught up in Victoria's world that she lost sight of what really matters. She said she doesn't like the person she's become. That's a powerful realization, I observed. Yes, but it's also painful. She's embarrassed, angry at herself for being manipulated, angry at me for not stopping her sooner. He stared into his coffee cup. She said she needs some time to think, to figure out who she really is without Victoria's influence. She left early this morning to stay with a college friend in the city. Without saying goodbye to Maddie? I couldn't keep the dismay from my voice. She wrote Maddie a letter, asked me to give it to her, said she'd call tonight. He looked up at me, his expression troubled. I don't know what's going to happen with our marriage, Eleanor. We've hurt each other a lot these past months. But I do know one thing. Olivia finally sees Victoria for who she really is. That's a start. I reached across the table to squeeze his hand. It's more than a start. It's a breakthrough. After Nathan left to run some errands, I sat in my sunroom, watching the snow fall gently outside. My feelings were mixed. Relief that Olivia had broken free from Victoria's influence, sadness that her marriage was in jeopardy, concern for Maddie caught in the middle of it all. But beneath these emotions ran a current of hope. Olivia had shown courage last night, standing up to Victoria and walking away. The daughter I knew was still in there, beneath the layers of social ambition and Victoria's manipulation. Maddie found me there, still lost in thought. She climbed into the chair beside me, snuggling under my arm. Dad looked sad when he left. Is something wrong? I kissed the top of her head. Your mom and dad are going through a difficult time right now. Your mom needed a little space to think, so she's staying with a friend for a few days. Is it because of Victoria? She asked, perceptive as always. Partly, Yes. She nodded solemnly. I heard them fighting last night. Dad called Victoria a manipulative vulture. Mom cried a lot. My heart ached for what this child had witnessed. I'm sorry you had to hear that, sweetheart. It's okay, she said with a shrug that tried too hard to be casual. I'm glad Mom finally saw that Victoria isn't really her friend. I've been trying to tell her that for ages, but she never listens to me. Sometimes adults take longer to see things that are obvious to children, I told her. Your mom loves you very much, Maddie. She just got a little lost for a while. Will she find her way back? I believe she will. It might take some time, but your mom is strong and smart. She'll figure things out. Maddie seemed satisfied with this answer and slipped off to play with the new puzzle I had given her for Christmas. I remained in the sunroom, contemplating the unexpected turn of events. Victoria's empire was showing cracks. The woman who had manipulated my daughter, threatened my son-in-law, and tried to take my home had overplayed her hand. I didn't know what would happen next, but I sensed that a significant shift had occurred. That evening, when Maddie spoke to Olivia on the phone, I hovered nearby, anxious to gauge my daughter's state of mind through the one-sided conversation I could hear. I miss you too, Mom, Maddie was saying. No, I'm not mad at you. Grandma's taking good care of me. When will you come back? Okay, I understand. I love you too. After the call ended, Maddie seemed thoughtful but not upset. Mom says she needs to do some thinking about important stuff. She says sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and have to figure out how to fix them. That's very true, I agreed. We all make mistakes, even grown-ups. She said she's sorry she hasn't been a very good mom lately. She promised to do better. Maddie looked up at me. Do you think she means it? Yes, I do. Your mom is a good person who got a little lost. But she's finding her way back. The days after Christmas passed, quietly. Nathan and Maddie stayed at my cottage, neither of them wanting to return to the empty Meridian Heights house. We played board games, watched movies, and took walks in the snow-covered neighborhood. It was a peaceful interlude, though I knew it couldn't last forever. On New Year's Eve, as we were preparing a simple dinner, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Olivia stood on the porch, snowflakes dusting her hair and shoulders. Mom, she said softly, her voice uncertain. Can I come in? I stepped back, opening the door wider. Of course. She entered hesitantly, as if unsure of her welcome. The confident, sometimes arrogant woman of recent months was gone, replaced by someone more vulnerable, more real. Olivia! Maddie came flying down the hallway, throwing herself into her mother's arms. You came back! Olivia hugged her tightly, tears glistening in her eyes. Of course I did, baby. I just needed a little time to think about some things. Over Maddie's head, her eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of shame, regret, and hope. I gave her a small nod, acknowledging the moment without words. Nathan appeared in the doorway to the kitchen, dish towel still in hand. You're earlier than you said you'd be? I couldn't stay away any longer, she admitted. I missed you all. Too much. The tension between them was palpable, but not hostile. Whatever had passed between them in the days since the gala, it had led to this moment of cautious reconciliation. We were just making dinner, I said, breaking the silence. There's plenty for everyone. I'd like that, Olivia replied, her eyes still on Nathan. If it's okay with you. He nodded, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. It's more than okay. As we prepared dinner together, the conversation was careful, focusing on safe topics, the weather, Maddie's activities, the book I had been reading. But beneath the surface pleasantries, I sensed a profound shift. The wall of defensiveness Olivia had maintained for so long had crumbled, allowing glimpses of the daughter I remembered. After Maddie went to bed, the three of us sat in the living room, the fire casting a warm glow over the scene. Olivia broke the silence first. "Mom, I owe you an apology. A big one." She took a deep breath. "I was wrong about so many things. About Victoria, about what's important in life, about how I treated you. Victoria is very skilled at manipulating people," I said gently. "She's had years of practice." Olivia shook her head. "That's no excuse. I should have seen through her, especially after what she tried to do with Cedar Hill. But I was so caught up in the status, the social connections, the feeling of being special, because Victoria Hamilton had chosen me." Her voice cracked with self-disgust. "I compromised everything I believed in, hurt the people I love most, all for the approval of a woman who saw me as nothing but a pawn." "What happened at the gala was just the final straw," Nathan added. "Victoria's true nature has been evident for months, but we, Olivia especially, didn't want to see it. The last few days have been clarifying," Olivia admitted. "I've had to face some hard truths about myself, about the choices I've made." She looked at me, her eyes wet with unshed tears. "Mom, when I heard what Victoria was planning for Cedar Hill, how she wanted to declare you incompetent, push you aside, I told myself it wasn't that bad, that you'd still have a place to live, that we were just organizing your affairs for your own good. But deep down, you knew it was wrong," I finished for her. She nodded, a tear spilling down her cheek. "Yes, and I went along with it anyway. That's the part I'm having the hardest time forgiving myself for." I reached across, the space between us, to take her hand. "Olivia, we all make mistakes, some bigger than others. What matters is that you've recognized the truth and stepped away from Victoria's influence." "I don't know if I deserve your forgiveness," she whispered. "Forgiveness isn't about deserving," I told her. "It's about healing, for both of us." We talked long into the night, excavating the past few months, examining how we had reached this point. Olivia spoke of her longtime feelings of inadequacy compared to Victoria's children, her belief that social status would somehow fill the void left by her father's death. Nathan recounted his own gradual awakening to Victoria's manipulation, his regret at not standing firmer against her influence. And I shared my journey too, the pain of betrayal, yes, but also the unexpected joy of reclaiming my independence, of building a life based on my own choices rather than others' expectations. As midnight approached, Olivia asked the question that had been hanging between us. "What happens now, Mom? Can we ever repair the damage I've caused?" I considered her words carefully. "I believe we can, Olivia. It won't happen overnight. Trust takes time to rebuild, but we have that time now." She nodded, wiping away a tear. "I'd like that, to rebuild, slowly, honestly." The clock struck midnight, marking the start of a new year. Outside, in the distance, we could hear the faint sound of fireworks from the town celebration. "Happy New Year," Nathan said quietly, raising his glass of sparkling cider. "To new beginnings," I added, lifting my own glass. Olivia met my gaze, her eyes clear and determined. "To truth and second chances." As we clinked our glasses together, I felt the weight of the past months lifting. The betrayal that had once seemed unforgivable now appeared in a different light, not excused, but understood in the context of Victoria's manipulation and Olivia's own insecurities. The road ahead would not be easy. There were still wounds to heal, trust to rebuild, and Victoria's threats to contend with. But in that moment, as the new year dawned, I allowed myself to hope that the worst was behind us, and that the family torn apart by betrayal might find its way back together, stronger for having faced the truth. January unfolded like a blank page, full of possibility. The new year brought a tentative peace to our family, though Victoria's shadow still loomed in the background. Olivia and Nathan had returned to their Meridian Heights home, but they visited the cottage often, sometimes together, sometimes separately. Maddie continued her weekend stays with me, a constant bright presence in my life. One frosty morning, as I was tending to my indoor plants, Olivia arrived unexpectedly, her expression troubled. "Mom, do you have time to talk?" I set down my watering can. "Of course. What's on your mind?" She sank onto the window seat, running her fingers along the colorful cushions I had sewn. "Victoria called yesterday, for the first time since the gala." My guard immediately went up. What did she want? To apologize, supposedly. Olivia's voice was laced with skepticism. She said she'd been under tremendous stress, that James had misrepresented their plans, that she never intended to hurt us or take advantage of our friendship. "And do you believe her?" Olivia met my gaze directly. "No, not anymore." It was the same Victoria script: charm, deflection, subtle manipulation. She even tried to make me feel guilty, saying how much she missed me, how she'd always thought of me as the daughter she never had. "What did you say to her?" I told her I needed more time to think things through. She twisted her hands in her lap. "Mom, I'm worried. Nathan says Victoria's been making veiled threats at his workplace, suggesting to his colleagues that he's financially unstable, questioning his judgment. It's subtle, but it's definitely happening." I frowned, concerned but not surprised. Victoria doesn't take rejection well. She never has. That's what scares me. We've seen what she's capable of when she's crossed. Olivia hesitated. "There's something else. The house in Meridian Heights. We can't afford it, not really. We stretched ourselves too thin with the down payment, believing Victoria's promises about investment returns. The monthly payments are crushing us. What are you going to do?" She took a deep breath. "We're going to sell it, take the loss, and move somewhere more reasonable." I was surprised by her pragmatism. The old Olivia would have clung to the prestigious address at all costs. That's a sensible decision, if difficult. Nathan's been saying it for months. I just didn't want to listen. She looked around the cottage with new appreciation. "You were right, Mom. A house is just a structure. It's the people inside who make it a home." I squeezed her hand, touched by this evidence of her changing perspective. "Where will you look for a new place?" "Actually, that's part of why I came by. There's a house for sale on Maple Street, not far from here. It's smaller than we're used to, but it has a nice yard for Maddie and—" She hesitated. "It would mean we'd be neighbors, more or less." The idea warmed me more than I expected. After everything that had happened, Olivia wanted to be close to me again. "I think that would be lovely." She smiled, relieved. "There's an open house tomorrow. Would you come with us to see it? I value your opinion." "I'd be happy to." After she left, I sat reflecting on the changes in my daughter. The humbling experience with Victoria had stripped away layers of pretension, revealing glimpses of the grounded, compassionate woman I had raised. There was still healing to be done, trust to rebuild, but we were moving in the right direction. The house on Maple Street turned out to be a charming colonial, with a wide front porch and mature oak trees in the yard. As we walked through the rooms, I could see Olivia and Nathan envisioning their life there. Maddie in the bedroom with the built-in bookcase, family meals in the sunny kitchen, summer evenings on the porch. "What do you think, Mom?" Olivia asked, as we toured the backyard. "I think it's perfect for your family," I said honestly. "Close enough to Maddie's school, reasonable commute for both of you, and—" I smiled. 10 minutes from my cottage. They made an offer that day. To their surprise, it was accepted quickly, despite being somewhat below asking price. The Meridian Heights house sold more slowly and at a loss, but by early March, they were settled into their new home on Maple Street. I helped them unpack, pleasantly surprised by how many of the ostentatious furnishings from the Meridian Heights house had been sold or donated. In their place were comfortable, practical pieces more suited to family life. No more white sofas that Maddie can't sit on. Nathan joked as we arranged the living room. No more crystal vases that cost a month's salary, Olivia added with a self-deprecating smile. The financial strain of the move and the loss on their previous home was considerable, but they faced it together with a realism that impressed me. Olivia had returned to teaching part-time at a local elementary school, rediscovering her passion for education. Nathan had secured a new position with a smaller firm, taking a pay cut but gaining more flexibility and stability. Life settled into a new rhythm. Sunday dinners at my cottage became a tradition, with Olivia and Nathan taking turns cooking alongside me. Maddie flourished in the more relaxed atmosphere, her natural exuberance no longer constrained by fears of disturbing her mother's carefully cultivated image. But Victoria Hamilton was not done with us yet. The first sign of trouble came in late. Walter Jenkins called me, his voice grave. "Eleanor, I thought you should know. Victoria Hamilton has filed a petition with the town council to restrict certain historical preservation designations in Lakeside Grove. How does that affect us?" I asked, confused. "Your cottage, Willow Creek, is on the list of properties that would lose protection. It could potentially be rezoned for commercial use." My heart sank. She's targeting me specifically? It appears so. The petition focuses on properties under a certain square footage in specific neighborhoods. It's carefully worded to seem like a general policy change, but when you look at the affected properties, yours stands out as the most valuable due to its location. Can she do this? Just change zoning laws to suit her purposes? Not without council approval and public hearings, but Victoria has influence, connections. She's presenting it as an economic development initiative. I thanked Walter for the warning, then called Grace immediately. As a longtime member of the Historical Preservation Society, she would have insights into how to fight this. "The nerve of that woman," Grace fumed after I explained the situation. "Don't worry, Eleanor. The society will fight this tooth and nail. Victoria may have money and connections, but we have public opinion and justice on our side." Over the next weeks, a battle unfolded at town meetings and in the local press. Victoria, smooth as ever, presented her rezoning initiative as progressive and necessary for Lakeside Grove's economic future. The Historical Preservation Society, led by Grace and supported by Walter's legal expertise, countered with arguments about community character, property rights, and the importance of preserving the town's history. I attended every meeting, sometimes speaking, sometimes simply sitting in silent protest. Olivia and Nathan came too, despite Victoria's cold glares. Even Maddie participated, creating posters for the Save Our Neighborhood campaign that the children at her school had organized. The situation escalated when James Hamilton was quoted in the local newspaper, dismissing opponents of the rezoning as backward-thinking senior citizens resistant to progress. The ageist comment backfired spectacularly, galvanizing the town's substantial senior population. Letters flooded the editor's desk, community meetings overflowed with angry residents, and a protest was organized outside the Hamiltons' office building. "You've become quite the activist, Mom," Olivia remarked one evening as we prepared picket signs at my cottage. I smiled, surprised myself by how energized I felt. I never expected to spend my retirement marching in protests, but here we are. "Here we are," she echoed, adding a bright red border to her sign. "You know, I used to think Victoria was so sophisticated, so worldly. Now I see her for what she is, a bully who uses her money to push people around." "She wasn't always this bad," I admitted. "After Thomas died, there was a time when I was grateful for her interest in you. You needed someone, and I was so lost in my own grief." Olivia set down her paintbrush, her expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking a lot about that time, about how Victoria stepped in when you were struggling. For years, I held on to that, used it to justify her influence in my life." She sighed. "But now I wonder if she saw an opportunity even then, a chance to drive a wedge between us." "Perhaps," I acknowledged. Or perhaps her intentions were genuinely good at first and only became self-serving over time. People are complicated. Olivia, even Victoria. Even me? She asked with a shadow of vulnerability. Especially you, I said softly. You're one of the most complex, fascinating people I've ever known. Always have been from the day you were born. She blinked back tears, then reached for my hand. I'm sorry, Mom. For everything. I squeezed her fingers. I know. I am too. That simple exchange, more than any grand declaration, marked a turning point in our healing. The wall of hurt and misunderstanding between us had finally begun to crumble in earnest. The rezoning battle continued through April, with Victoria growing increasingly desperate as public opinion turned against her. When ethical concerns about her development practices began appearing in the local press, she lashed out, threatening lawsuits against the newspaper and individual critics. Then came the bombshell that changed everything. The state's Financial Oversight Board announced an investigation into the Hamilton Development Corporation for potential fraudulent practices, including misrepresentation to investors and improper use of development funds. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. By afternoon, Victoria was calling Olivia. She wants me to provide character testimony, Olivia told me, shocked after hanging up the phone. She actually expected me to tell investigators what a trustworthy, ethical businesswoman she is. What did you say? I asked, already knowing the answer. I told her I couldn't lie, even for her. Olivia's voice was firm. Then she threatened to reveal embarrassing details about our family if I didn't help. Her said she had evidence that could destroy Nathan's career. My blood ran cold. Blackmail now? Is there any depth to which she won't sink? Apparently not. Olivia wrapped her arms around herself. The thing is, Mom, I don't even know what evidence she thinks she has. Nathan's been completely transparent with me about his dealings with the Hamiltons. There's nothing there that could hurt him, except perhaps his own naivety in trusting them initially. Victoria's desperate, I reasoned. People say all sorts of things when they're drowning. Olivia nodded, her expression hardening with resolve. I'm not going to let her threaten my family anymore. I've called Walter. I'm going to tell the investigators everything I know about Victoria's business practices. I hugged her tightly, proud of her courage. That's my brave girl. The following weeks were a whirlwind of depositions, interviews, and legal consultations. Olivia shared everything she had witnessed during her time in Victoria's inner circle: the manipulation of investors, the misrepresentation of project details, the pressure tactics used on city officials. Nathan provided financial documents showing how the Hamiltons had misrepresented the Lakeside Commons project to potential partners. Victoria, predictably, retaliated. Rumors began circulating about Nathan at his workplace, anonymous tips questioning his professional judgment. Olivia found herself excluded from community organizations where Victoria's influence held sway. Even Maddie felt the fallout, uninvited from a birthday party because the hosting family had business ties to the Hamiltons. But unlike before, when these social slights would have devastated Olivia, she now faced them with remarkable equanimity. It's just proof that those relationships weren't real to begin with, she told me. The friends who matter have stood by us. Indeed, a surprising number of people in Lakeside Grove had rallied around our family. The parents at Maddie's school organized a special outing to replace the birthday party she'd been excluded from. Nathan's new firm publicly supported him against the anonymous allegations. Even the pastor at Olivia's church, a man I had always found rather spineless, delivered a sermon about moral courage that everyone recognized as a statement of solidarity. By early May, the rezoning initiative had been soundly defeated in a town council vote. Victoria, increasingly isolated and facing mounting legal troubles, retreated to her mansion, emerging only for necessary appearances related to the investigation. On a warm Saturday in late May, we gathered at my cottage to celebrate my birthday. A simple backyard barbecue with family and my circle of friends from the community center. As Nathan grilled burgers and Grace organized a croquet tournament, on the lawn, Olivia sat beside me on the porch swing. "Happy birthday, Mom," she said, handing me a small package wrapped in floral paper. Inside was a silver locket, identical to the one I had shown Maddie months ago, my grandmother's locket that had gone missing during the move from Cedar Hill. "How did you find this?" I gasped, opening it to see the familiar photograph of my grandparents. "I didn't," Olivia admitted. "This is a replica. I had a jeweler make it based on the pictures Maddie took when you showed her the original." She bit her lip. "I know it's not the same, but I thought—" "It's perfect," I interrupted, clasping it around my neck. "Absolutely perfect," she smiled, relieved. "There's something else I want to give you today. Not a physical gift, but a promise." She took a deep breath. "I've been offered a position as the director of a new after-school program for underserved children. It's exactly the kind of work I always dreamed of doing before I got sidetracked by Victoria's world." "Olivia, that's wonderful. Are you going to take it?" She nodded, her eyes shining with purpose. "It's a significant pay cut from my corporate job, but it feels right. It feels like me." She took my hand. "You helped me remember who I really am, Mom. Even when I was at my worst, you saw the real me underneath all that pretense." "I never stopped seeing you," I said softly. "Even when you couldn't see yourself." She leaned her head on my shoulder, just as she used to do as a little girl. "I promise I won't lose my way again. I promise to be the kind of mother to Maddie that you were to me, one who values character over status, kindness over social climbing, truth over convenience." I kissed her forehead, my heart full. "You already are that mother, Olivia. You found your way back." The party continued around us, filled with genuine laughter and easy conversation. Maddie raced across the lawn with the neighbor children, her face alight with joy. Nathan chatted with Walter about community projects they were both involved in. Grace and my book club friends set out the birthday cake they had baked together, complete with slightly wobbly icing and too many candles. It wasn't the elegant gathering that Victoria Hamilton would have approved of. There were no fine wines, no catered delicacies, no strategic social connections being formed. Just people who genuinely cared for each other, celebrating another year of life together. As I looked around at this mismatched, wonderful group, I realized how far I had come from that humiliating moment in Victoria's basement. The pain of betrayal that had once consumed me had transformed into something else. Wisdom, perhaps, or a deeper understanding of human frailty, including my own. For I had made mistakes too. I had allowed grief to create distance between Olivia and me after Thomas died, leaving her vulnerable to Victoria's manipulation. I had sometimes confused sacrifice with love, teaching my daughter that her worth was tied to what she did for others rather than who she was. In my desire to protect her, I had sometimes failed to truly see her struggles. But we were healing now, both of us, learning to be mother and daughter in a new way, with more honesty and less expectation. Learning that love doesn't mean perfect, understanding or agreement, but rather a willingness to keep trying, to forgive, to begin again. The investigation into Victoria Hamilton's business practices continued through the summer and into fall. Charges were eventually filed: financial fraud, investor misrepresentation, attempted bribery of public officials. James Hamilton was implicated as well, his arrogance finally catching up with him in the form of incriminating emails and recorded conversations. Victoria's carefully constructed empire began to crumble. The Lakeside Commons project was abandoned, the investors compensated through court-mandated payments. Smaller developments were sold off to cover mounting legal fees. The mansion on the hill, that symbol of untouchable success, was put on the market. I took no pleasure in her downfall. There was a time when Victoria and I had been, if not friends, then at least friendly acquaintances. I remembered her grief when her husband died, her genuine concern for her children. Somewhere along the way, ambition and bitterness had twisted those natural human feelings into something darker. Perhaps in her own way, she had been as lost as Olivia had been. My life settled into a rhythm that satisfied me deeply. My cottage garden flourished, Thomas's heritage roses spreading their fragrance across the yard each summer. My friendships at the community center deepened, providing a rich social life I had never expected in my retirement years. I continued my pottery classes, discovering a talent for creating pieces that combined beauty with functionality. Olivia thrived in her new role at the after-school program, her natural gifts as an educator finding full expression. Nathan's career stabilized at the smaller firm, the decreased pressure allowing him to be more present for Maddie and to rebuild his relationship with Olivia. Their house on Maple Street became the warm, welcoming home it was meant to be, filled with the comfortable chaos of family life. And Maddie, bright, perceptive Maddie, blossomed in an environment where she was valued for herself, not as an accessory to her parents' social ambitions. She spent time at my cottage several days a week, learning to bake, to garden, to create, with her hands just as I had learned from my own grandmother. One evening in late September, as we sat on my porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink, Maddie asked me a question that caught me by surprise. "Grandma, do you ever miss Cedar Hill? The big mansion, I mean." I considered her question carefully. "Sometimes I miss certain things about it. The rose garden your grandfather planted, the window seat in the library where I used to read to your mother, the way the morning light came through the stained glass in the foyer." I smiled at her attentive face. "But no, I don't miss the mansion itself. This cottage suits me better now. Because it's yours," she said wisely. "Not just a place you live, but a place that shows who you are." "Exactly right. How did you get to be so smart?" She grinned. "I have a really wise grandma." As the first autumn leaves began to fall, I received a letter from Victoria Hamilton. It had been delivered by courier, the envelope thick and expensive, the handwriting unmistakably hers. I stared at it for a long time before opening it, unsure what to expect. Perhaps a final barb, a last attempt to wound. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in Victoria's elegant script. "Eleanor. By the time you read this, I will have left Lakeside Grove, likely for good. The legal matters are proceeding, and I have accepted the inevitable consequences of choices made over many years. I find myself compelled to write to you, of all people. Perhaps because you are the only person who has known me since before all this began, who remembers the woman I was before ambition consumed everything. House? I will not ask for forgiveness, as I do not believe you could give it sincerely, nor would I deserve it. I will merely acknowledge what we both know to be true. I tried to take what was yours. Not just your property, but your daughter's loyalty, your granddaughter's affection. I did so deliberately and without remorse. Until now. Age brings a certain clarity, doesn't it? Looking back, I see that what I envied most was not your possessions or position, but your capacity for contentment, the grace with which you faced widowhood, the purpose you found in motherhood, the quiet dignity that never required validation from others. You have built a life of substance, Eleanor. I built an empire of sand. Take care of Olivia. She is more like you than either of you realize, stronger than she knows, capable of great love, worthy of the same in return. Victoria. I sat with the letter for a long time, emotions washing through me in waves. Surprise, vindication, a complex sadness for the woman Victoria might have been. Then I carefully folded the paper and placed it in my desk drawer. Someday, perhaps, I would share it with Olivia. But not yet. Some wounds were still too fresh, some truths too raw. That Sunday, as our family gathered for dinner at my cottage, I looked around the table with a sense of profound gratitude. Olivia, passing the salad to Nathan with a smile that held the easy intimacy of a marriage finding its footing again. Nathan, telling a story that made Maddie giggle helplessly, his face relaxed in a way it hadn't been for months. Maddie, secure, in the knowledge that she was loved unconditionally, not for what she represented, but for who she was. And me, no longer defined by loss or betrayal, but by the life I had chosen to create from those experiences. A life filled with purpose, friendship, creativity, and love. As we raised our glasses in a toast to the simple joy of being together, I silently thanked that painful moment in Victoria's basement, the humiliation that had pushed me to assert my worth, to reclaim my agency, to build something new from the ashes of what was lost. Sometimes, I reflected, the very circumstances meant to diminish us become the catalyst for our greatest transformations. The basement had been meant as a place of exile, but it had become instead a doorway to freedom. For me, for Olivia, even for Maddie, who would grow up with a different legacy than the one Victoria had nearly written for our family. I had left quietly that day, walked away from a life built on appearances and expectations. I had sold a mansion that represented generations of history, but had become a battleground of competing agendas. And in doing so, I had gained something far more valuable: the courage to live authentically, the wisdom to forgive without forgetting, and the joy of seeing my family find its way back to what truly mattered. Not status or possessions or social approval, but the simple, profound truth that had sustained me through every trial. Love, freely given and gratefully received, is the only mansion worth building, and the only one that can never be taken away. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.